Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. As today, we mostly just focus on tying up our last few loose ends. Though hopefully we'll have enough time left over after to meet up with Marshal Strachs, get that whole shindig started. That said, a bit of a weird one today. We're jumping all over the sector, so we'll probably have a fair few cuts, since I'll also be simultaneously, provoking deliberate random encounters to bulk up our Drusian rep. But we will stay primarily focused on the actual interesting stuff. Exploration, POIs, general quest fulfillment, etc. Not sure we'll actually find anything useful, but it will be satisfying to finally check all this stuff off. Smuggler's cache. Nothing all that great, but we'll take it. There are at least a couple of things there we can actually use, albeit in very, very tiny amounts. This looks like a gas giant, so fuel or nothing. Nothing it is. Planetoid? Yes, with a trivial amount of plasteel. Hard pass even if we did have extractiums. Hey, there we go. Alright, let's see what we got. Ice World. The tiny colony is buried in an enormous, yawning pit. The edges of its civilian structures barely visible, even from the shuttle. The settlement was destroyed when the ground swelled up under it. The forlorn bones of dead colonists are strewn amidst the rubble. On the edge of the crater, the scouts discover a tunnel entrance. Apparently, there was an explosion in the cavities beneath the town, whose unsuspecting people fell instantly into the chasm that opened as a result. Near its gaping maw is a shuttle, overturned and blackened by the blast, forever motionless. One stack misc. Deep beneath the rubble, the scouts uncovered the remains of warehouses, depots, and a veritable maze of suspicious tunnels gated with airlocks. Judging by the flattened containers with half-effaced markings, the impressively vast subterranean city belonged to a smuggling syndicate. Which also nets us a living snare. Cybermastiff mod. Also the misc, that's 50 Drusian rep. Lying next to the shuttle are empty bomb containers and corpses clad in characteristic armor. The Voidcraft belonged to the Adeptus Arbitus. Surviving records suggest it was the arbitrators who planted the explosives and collapsed the tunnel on top of their dwellers. Searching through the papers, you find the demolition plans. The arbitrators knew that detonating the tunnels would bury the colony, but prioritized eliminating the criminals over preserving the lives of ordinary settlers. The documents also include a map of the Coronis Expanse, containing encrypted data. It appears the arbitrators were aware of another smuggler's cache, but in a different system. Ooh, okay, so follow-up location. Right, something new for the to-do list. Also, anecdotal evidence of arbitrator priorities. Though, really, nothing new there. Silence of Mersegrit. I want to say that's south of Dargonis. Let's get a quick peek. I feel like we just did a quest there not too long ago. Yes. Yeah, actually, I think that might be where we just fought the elusive contempt. So just off Dargonis, yeah, that'll be an easy get. We'll probably snag that close to last. that's it. Let's see what comes next. Sight set on the rumor zones just west of Viabos 6. Forewarning. Space Hulk. Though also a POI marker on the planet. Have we... Trying to remember what we did in this sector. Oh, that's Amber World. Yeah, where we defeated the King of Distortion. Wonder if this is related. A strange vessel, enveloped in a pale orchid mist, sails past the stained glass windows of the captain's bridge. A familiar coat of arms appears on its thoroughly dented, ragged hull. The House von Valancius coat of arms. The Augur crew reports that this is the Lightseeker, an expedition void ship tasked with exploring the planets of Coronis Expanse. This vessel disappeared without a trace over 600 years ago. The telemetry shows that the decks are empty and devoid of life, with no crew detected. The sight of the ancient void ship causes a throbbing headache and inexplicable disgust. Where did it vanish to for all of those centuries? And how did it end up here? The Voxmaster reports that the elders of her clan told her tales about the Lightseeker. This legendary void ship has discovered plenty of bountiful worlds, where the most profitable extractiums were later installed. This vessel brought countless riches to the Von Valancius Protectorate in the past, but its sudden reappearance after 600 years of oblivion seems wrong and dangerous. The High Factotum, Janris Stanrock, confirms that the Lightseeker is still a part of the Von Valancius fleet. In other circumstances, the Factotum would have insisted on reclaiming the property of the Protectorate. But who knows what had happened to the vessel during the centuries it was lost? The dark powers of the cosmos, or even the warp itself, could have corrupted the void ship. The worried whispers of the crew are silenced by an urgent alert. The ship is rapidly changing course. While closely watching the Lightseeker's maneuvers, your seneschal becomes certain. The vessel is preparing to attack. Abelard has heard a lot about bountiful worlds discovered by the void ship's crew, but he doubts the same brave voidsmen are at the helm now. Whatever dark powers are controlling the vessel, one thing is clear. It's a threat. The rogue trader needs to engage the unknown enemy and recapture the property of the Von Valancius dynasty. Wolfar is adamant that any void ship that has spent the past 6 centuries beyond the Veil is corrupted beyond salvation. He says it must be destroyed at once. I mean, sure, it is almost certainly going to attack us, but, you know, it is possible, even if just remotely, that there are, in fact, somehow salvageable people in there. Probably not, but we've got to at least give it a try. Vigdis sends one signal after another, urging the Lightseeker's crew to establish contact. To no avail. This short delay is enough for the possessed void ship to assume an advantageous position as it prepares to engage your vessel. Darn. Well, we tried. That aside, single ship I think will be okay. For once, we've actually got them outnumbered. Oh, yeah, we're fine. Unless they hit us with a major curveball here. Let's put out the light. twist. Guess I could have done the mag gun pass before twisting, but that's fine. Somehow I think we'll survive. Oh yeah, we could have probably won this in a single round if I'd done that in the right order.
With the force of a supernova.
Oh. Radiating hellfire. Yeah, that seems about right. And we're done. Lightseeker out. Remains strewn across the stars, which nets us some Void Heretic trophies we don't need, but also nets us a level up. For our ship, rather. Which I think at this point is just going towards filling out the last few developments. Yeah, we'll just start going down the list here. Or rather up, I think. Let's grab Sanctified Restart. Removes the penalties on Shield Restart. And Steady Hand 2. Greater chance of reduced cooldown. Also, top off. We took some very slight damage from the Hellfire. And you know what? While we're at it, might as well go ahead and bump our hull again. I think we've got enough. Oh, never mind. Apparently we are capped out. Which really means we have no use for all this scrap aside from possibly upgrading the RAM. Which, I'll think about. We don't really use that much, but certainly an option. For now, though, let's push on. We're one hop out from Lapidus Mortis on our path of revulsion. After which we hit Cronach. The homunculus's prism residing on the ship receives the incoming signal from the planet's surface and shows the next set of coordinates. Augurs determine that, as before, the beacon on this planet is set up in the middle of a fenced area, with a multitude of living creatures within. The third beacon turns out to be encircled by an appalling gallery of grotesque exhibits, cobbled together from a huge quantity of mutilated bodies. Massive statues pierced with giant black rods depict the battles of unknown warriors with non-existent creatures. Each of the several dozen such statues is created from quivering flesh and still living bodies, groaning in agony. Half a stack Xenos. Once the beacon is torn off its platform, a scarlet lilac impulse runs across the giant rods that pierce the statues of flesh. All the unholy figures are gripped at once by blinding blue flames, as the air is filled with incoherent screams and the smell of burned meat. Darn, and it really seemed like we could save them, too. Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty well desensitized to Drukhari stuff at this point. You can only get so much mileage out of the same old sordid descriptors. 100 Dreams Crossroad. Not exactly on the way, but we'll fit it in somewhere. On we go. Kiava Gamma. Unvanquished Tech Heresy. One of the workshops has fallen to corruption. The machines within disassemble the surrounding mechanisms and swallow workers whole to construct repulsive amalgams of metal and flesh. Yeah, we should probably do something about that. Which will cause a loss of efficiency, but nothing we can't afford. I believe the way we built it, Kiava Gamma is nothing if not efficient, and we're certainly not just going to leave it there to fester. Yeah, it's either destroy it or feed it, which seems like an inherently bad idea. So we'll go with the former, which mostly just shuffles points around. We should be fine on all three stats. The Manufactorum focuses all its efforts on executing the Rogue Trader's order. After an arduous battle, the workshop is purged, and with it, the last seeds of corruption on the planet. Oh, okay. I mean, real note of finality there. Though that certainly does lend itself towards the idea that we are wending our way towards the end. And nothing to worry about on colony stats. Yeah, we're fine there. Doubly so if that's the last time we'll ever face a real problem here. On we go. I'll be curious to see if our other two colony events likewise wrap up with the same general note of finality. 100 Dreams Crossroad. Let's see where the path of revulsion hath led us. Augurs have detected a container with unidentified cargo on the planet next to the Drukhari beacon. Many kilometers around this zone are filled with huge, likely dangerous Xenos life forms. A very strong emission of unclear nature radiates from the beacon itself. The cargo can only be taken from the planet by force, with the help of an assault squad. Okay, well, that's new. Expecting resistance, the assault squad disembarks some distance away from the beacon. To the soldiers' surprise, the gigantic mutants surrounding the beacon turn out to be incapable of even moving. Like carpets of formless chunks of flesh, these groaning and bleeding creatures cover the earth for many kilometers around. Something unseen brings them unbearable suffering. The emissions of the beacon, previously detected by augurs, turn out to be a cruel trap for the assault squad. Acting on the soldiers' minds, it sends them horrible visions of brutal deaths and excruciating torture, preventing them from coming closer to the beacon and the cargo. The images of such abominable fates appearing directly in the brains would have brought ecstatic pleasure to a Drukhari, but even these warriors, tempered by battle, can scarcely withstand them. Stand fast, men. We've encountered Drukhari before, and we've defeated them soundly every single time. The only way they can beat us is in their dreams. But are you really going to let that happen? Stay the course and shut this thing down. We'll put an end to Tervantius's twisted legacy. Together. Guided by the Lord Captain's words, the soldiers resolutely advance on the beacon. The Rogue Trader's speech helps them withstand the beacon's horrors and remain sane. By activating a switch on the beacon, the soldiers finally turn off the torturous emissions. Oh, which nets us Drukhari gloves, come on. The removal of the beacon from the platform proceeds as planned. Nothing happens afterward. The gigantic, groaning carpet of mutants continues, laying where they were, neither exploding nor burning up. The Voxmaster reports that the prism from the homunculus's laboratory shattered into a myriad of needles. It flew apart in every direction with a loud snap, gravely wounding several crew members. Neat. Parting shot from Tervantius. Fair enough, I suppose. And yeah, sadly, these gloves are pretty much useless to us. I mean, the bleeding effect would be kind of nice on Cabela, but the problem is it's Drukhari equipment, which means the only person who can actually use it would be Yurliet. So all that for basically nothing, aside from, I suppose, a modest amount of XP. We'll take it. At the very least, we finally got some closure. Let's hit that smuggler's cache next. Silence of Mer Segret. Focusing lens. Firing range of lance weapons is reduced by 5, but their damage is increased by 30%. Which, honestly, isn't worth the loss of range. My goodness, 5 whole tiles would be pretty rough. Though we will take the textiles. That's all useful for Drusian rep. Which is yet another thing off our to-do list. Just 2 more stops. Janus. Unsealed Gate. Alarming news from Janus. The Webway Gate has opened, bringing forth a wave of Xenos. Which we really don't have any choices on. Interesting. Oh, okay, because diplomacy's locked behind complacency, and this is the one planet we have where that is woefully lacking. Right. Okay, well, fair enough. Planetary wardens perish in a bloody battle between Crudarox Eldari and Drukhari raiders. Following Moran's victory, a fragile peace settles on Janus. Okay. Very simple event, but it does also have a similar note of finality. Nice to see Moran still around, though. Even if it was just a brief name drop. Last stop. Let's hit up Valstone. Logistical error. Which doesn't really sound like it has the same note of finality, but let's see. A chartist has delivered the wrong cargo to the planet. Instead of the expected air filters, the world received a far more valuable shipment of cogitator boards. Okay, yeah, this one sounds much more conventional than the other two. We literally don't need it, so might as well hand it back. The cargo's intended recipient, an admiral of the merchant fleet in command of a squadron, thanks the rogue trader for his honesty, and assures him that the debt will be repaid. I'm sure it will. Don't go crazy, though. We're already capped on rep, so it's not like that really made much of a difference. But it has, however, completely finished off our to-do list. All of our side tasks complete. Let's head on back, see what's up with Marshal Strachs. From here on out, we're essentially just buckling down on the plot. Plus, I suppose, some minor exploration in the last 2 sectors over yonder. No connecting routes there yet, though, so we'll hold off on that until I assume we chat with Inquisitor Calcazar. Oh, and let's go ahead and cash in all the cargo we just collected. Which I guess really wasn't all that much. I was hoping for more. It was mostly just the smugglers' caches. But still might be enough to bump us up another rank or two. Danrock, I've come to bargain. Yeah, that's fine. Normally I try to even it out, but you can't actually do that with generic cargo. And rank 23. Which unlocks this particular assortment of goods, the ones that we glimpsed last time round. Nothing there super useful to us, but it gets us one step closer. 8 more ranks to go. Let's hit up Marshal Strachs. Oh. This is new. No one waiting in queue. Kind of gives the impression this place might be on lockdown.
I always keep my options open.
And we've got mercenaries. Individually named mercenaries, which is interesting. I serve humanity. Your Lordship? Really does feel like someone's getting ready to make a power play. And you know who my money's on. Marshal Strachs regards the prefect with an implacable expression. Out of the question. I will only speak about resolving this situation with the rogue trader directly. No intermediaries. As she speaks, Prefect Valtour's augmented hands constantly fidget with a tattered piece of paper that may have once been a report. But for how much longer might we have to wait for the rogue trader? 10 turns? 30? Thrice that? Time is an invaluable commodity, and we currently have none, esteemed Marshal. Not to mention that Decree RP/84289 explicitly states... She stops abruptly when she sees you. The Marshal raises his chin. Rogue Trader, the Adeptus Arbitis requests your immediate cooperation. The sacred tithe collected from the Coronis Expanse is in danger, and you are the only one who can negate this threat. So it would seem. Considering what I just walked in on, it does sound pretty serious. Extraordinarily so. And there is no guarantee that we are not already too late. The prefect's glare bores into Strachs' grim figure. All of the Expanse is ablaze, Rogue Trader. This state of disorder jeopardizes a critical strategic location. The planet Lethis, a clandestine world provided by Theodora von Valancius for the purpose of storing the tithe collected from the worlds of the Coronis Expanse. Strachs' cheek twitches. At present, the planet is overflowing with the sacred tribute amassed over the course of decades. After we lost contact with every single ship sent through the Maw in recent years, the decision was made to cease all attempts to transport the tithe out of the Expanse until the warp's tumult has subsided. It was for just such periods of the Maw's impassibility that the storage world of Lethis was devised. The raspy voice of the prefect cuts across the marshal's speech. If I may provide certain details, as per regulations prior to being sent to this temporary depot, all tithe shipments were first brought to Dargonis. These deliveries were made using barges crewed by servitors, with the only people on board with the privilege of autonomous behavior being key officers and an arbitrator escort. In other words, the location of both the system and the planet was strictly classified. A special pact was made with the Navigator House. Even I was not entrusted with the coordinates. Is that so? The Marshal looks straight at you. Given the scarcity of our resources, absolute secrecy is Lethus's main line of defense. However, we are detecting increased activity near the storage world's location. I do not want to do this, but I am, quite plainly, forced to ask for your help. Go to Lethus and organize the extraction of the Imperial Tithe to Dargonis for further safekeeping. Right, I'll bet that's what we walked in on. Voltur trying to convince Strachs to let her send her mercenaries in our stead, but he refused to give her the coordinates. I can certainly do that, but are you sure we should be talking about this in front of them? They do look a mite bit out of place. The prefect looks at them and snaps her fingers. The fighters immediately make the sign of the Aquila. These are my bodyguards, members of the Fangs of the Expanse. They are here to demonstrate my willingness to offer the Adeptus Arbitus whatever cooperation I can. Fangs of the Expanse. Can't say I've run into them before. And I've been pretty much all over the Expanse. Mercenaries. The Marshal spits the word out in disgust. Voltur sighs. Gregoris, you know we need every fighter we can get these days. You have precious few people at your disposal, and every year fewer still remain. The Adeptus Administratum regulations do not prohibit the employment of hired force. She meets the Marshal's fierce gaze with calm composure. And now her reports make sense. Getting a bunch of arbitrators killed or fired puts pressure on Strachs to accept her offer. So this activity around Lethus, you think someone's trying to find a way to steal the tithes? The Marshal draws a sharp breath. Impossible. That would mean that someone commanding vast resources and influence knows of its existence. Yeah, we certainly don't know anyone like that. We have no evidence that could support this conjecture. Considering the current state of the Coronis Expanse with pirates and Xenos roaming where they please, it is far more likely that the storage world will be discovered by accident. The hastiness of the Marshal's rejection of your theory is the best proof that he himself considers a deliberate search to be a plausible explanation. But it seems he is unwilling to admit it, even to himself. And I don't see much benefit to bringing up our past security lapses. I feel like we've shored things up since then. So you're telling me that decades worth of the Expanse's collective tithes are all gathered on a single planet under my purview? Just how much are we talking about here? Also, doesn't that include psychers and conscripts and such? The Marshal sighs in anguish. It is enough to instantly turn anyone who captures it into a force more intimidating than the Kaspalika Shadow Barons. A tempting prize, as you can see. Okay, well, if that is indeed the case, then why was I not informed of this sooner? If this Lethus is technically part of my protectorate. At my insistence, it was struck from all astrogational data. It was once a peripheral world with no value to tithe collectors, which is why its disappearance did not raise many questions. No one cares about a planet that had nothing to give. Right, but what I mean is, it sounds like this was part of a special deal brokered with my predecessor involving my protectorate. You don't think we could have perhaps avoided this problem if you had simply kept me informed? The prefect clasps her hands. Lady Theodora was fond of secrets, and good at keeping them. You inherited those secrets when you ascended her throne. But there are so many of them that apprising you of them all would be an impossible task, as is determining the scope of your knowledge. Fair enough, I suppose. But if you're looping me in now, it's because you have to. I assume you can't just go there and do it yourself? That is an acceptable option, one with which we are prepared to proceed. The Adeptus Administratum has requisitioned mercenary troops of the highest caliber. Under extreme circumstances, the Lex Imperialis permits... Out of the question. There is a steely ring in Strach's voice. In the Coronis Expanse, there exists a strict separation of authority between the Adeptus Arbitus and the Administratum, as certified by the Von Valancius dynasty and formalized in the Lex Dargonis. Transporting the tithe to and from Lethis and maintaining its security is the duty of the Adeptus Arbitus. Aside from the head of the dynasty, only we have the right to set foot on Lethis, or to know its coordinates. Such is the word of the law. The Marshal turns again to look at you. There is another reason. Under the present circumstances, only you can provide the necessary level of security for the Imperium's property, stored on your world. The Arbitus are too few, and our forces are stretched too thin, as we must see to the stability of tithe deliveries from other worlds, and prevent any attempts at disrupting said stability. Thus, we are humbly asking you to help us. Understood. Really wish you'd told me about this sooner, but I'll get it done. The Marshal nods. I will have the coordinates and passwords transferred to you. They are for your eyes only. Once you have arrived at the location, you are to oversee the tide's transportation to Dargonis. We will meet the barges here, and then redirect them to secure vaults. I must ask that you hurry, your lordship, before all is lost. The prefect bows. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like we've walked right into the middle of another power play here. Ensuring the safety of the tide is paramount, rogue trader. There is no room for error. If you will excuse me, your lordship, certain administrative matters demand my immediate attention. Matters like telling your mercenaries to follow my ship when I head for Lethis. Yeah, I do find myself wondering at what Voltur's endgame here might be. I don't think she's the type to try to just outright steal. She is, I want to say, a loyal servant of the Imperium, but I wouldn't put it past her to try to force the Adeptus Arbitus out of their position of authority in the Coronis if she felt that she could do a better job, which, given the general consistent contempt she does seem to have shown for the arbitrators, does seem like it's apt to be the case. Though I will also say that knowing that Theodora's tied up in this now as well, that does hit us with a bit of a curveball. Let's get a peek over there, see what happens when we enter the sector. No other attached sectors, so it's a standalone. Alright. Let's see what we got. I'm mostly curious to see if there's any, like, immediate, obvious signs of skullduggery. Though, at a glance, nothing immediately jumping out at me. And I'm going to guess that's got to be Lethis, given the artificial structure in its orbit. Lava World, nothing of note. Bit of a shame they didn't loop that into the whole Burning Worlds subplot. Planetoid. With Trivial Plasteel Deposit, pass. And Lethis. No, nothing. Just a landing site at Storage Sector LZ3107. Would have expected something, like a broadcast on arrival, an alert from the scanners about something unusual going on. Which does kind of reinforce my suspicions that we actually just led someone here, as opposed to the place already being compromised. Also, now that I've had some time to think about it, if there are in fact living people here as part of the tithe, I imagine that they would also be tasked with keeping the planet essentially running as a self-sustaining storage colony. That would make sense. That said, this does feel like a good place to call it. I would love to land to see if my suspicions are confirmed, but we're already pushing time. And we did get a fair bit done today. A lot of disparate bits and bobs, but we cleared our to-do list. You know, from here on out, it's pure plot. At least until they hit us with some new optionals. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll go double check, make sure we're ready to go. And we'll pick up here next time for a new episode of Storage Wars. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Aerobowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
I always keep my options open.